Hey, hi, hello there, amateurs. Today we'll be discussing what happened in F1 testing in Bahrain. The wild, the unexpected, the expected, and everything in between. We will be on it and we will see how this compares soon to the races when they begin on the 14th of March, when we start with first practice. So we'll start off with day one. What happened? So Lando had the fastest lap. Although he didn't have as many as some teams in terms of laps, he did have the fastest, followed by George Russell, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Liam Lawson, Alexander Albon, Yuki Tsunoda, Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto, Lewis Hamilton, Jack Doohan, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, and Oliver Behrman. Haas was running on very high fuel, so they were way down. And according to Ruth Buscon-Davy, she said that Haas tends to do this at testing, where they focus more on how many laps they can get rather than how quick they are. So that's why Haas is at the very bottom. And we saw that all throughout all three sessions this week. And with the top teams being McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari, they did throughout the 3 days swap out. But the biggest thing that people will remember is the fact that there was a power cut. There was a power cut on the circuit. People were joking that the most expensive sport in the world hasn't paid its electric bill. And people had to, they called a red flag. They had to cut testing, but they did restart eventually, with teams using their phones and torches and anything they could find that could produce a light to see what they can do with the car while they are in this sort of lull. People were very confused, but as with many things in Formula One, you can't really expect anything. There is bound to be something weird happening, and it did happen. And then day two saw the Williams being at the very top, with Carlos Sainz having the fastest time in a Williams, which is very unexpected. People did not expect to see such good times from Williams. Of course, you have to bear in mind that testing doesn't necessarily mean that this will be the overall performance of each team. This is just teams using updates, using various different methods, settings, modes, and testing how they work before the real thing begins in a few weeks' time. But it does suggest that perhaps we have been underestimating Williams, and James Vowles has started to work on his promise to improve the team. And it's great to see that Williams are returning to their old glory days, where they were near the top. They have been previous in maybe 2 decades ago. They were they were world champions, and perhaps this is the time that they might see themselves no longer be a backmarker team. So the order in terms of timings was Carlos was at the very top, followed by Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan, Pierre Gasly, Isaac Hadjar, Fernando Alonso, Yuki Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Gabriel Bortoleto, Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon and Oliver Behrman. The two people that aren't included in this are Max Verstappen and Alex Albon. That was because Williams and Red Bull decided to have one day each during day 2 and day 3 dedicated to one driver rather than splitting it between the two drivers each day. So Max and Alex didn't drive on the Thursday, but they did drive all day on the Friday. So now we move on to day 3, the final day, where two crazy things happened. One of the crazy things was a bus was on track. Nobody knows how it got there, but rightfully they decided to call a red flag, call all the cars back to the garages, and to only let the cars out when everything on the track is clear. This is because a couple of years back, Jules Bianchi had suffered a head injury which led him to be in a coma for many months, and then eventually he did pass away. And if the FIA wants to prevent that from happening again, this is a good thing that they call a red flag, because going at such high speeds, nobody should be putting their lives at risk when something such as this can be so easily avoidable. They are going to investigate how the bus got there, because nobody knows why it happened to be there, who allowed this to happen. So they are investigating to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Obviously with testing, it's not the exact same rules as it would be in a proper Grand Prix race, but you know, safety is safety, and they need to look into how this could have possibly happened. Another weird thing that happened was another red flag was called because in one of the on-track offices right near where the start and finish line is, a glass window just sort of blew out and smashed onto the track. I'm guessing they might look into it, but it was not as deep as the bus situation, but still they called a red flag because you don't want glass in your tyres, especially when you're going at high speeds. That could also be very dangerous. So they called 2 red flags, and rightfully so, but it is very strange that these 2 things happened. Usually the weirdest thing that happens on track is maybe an animal or a bit of rubbish gets on the track, but these were 2 very unusual situations. So the driver who had the fastest lap on day 3 was George Russell. He didn't have the most laps in, but you have to take into consideration that there were 2 drivers on track who had 4 days, and even then, Max Verstappen was second fastest, and he had 10 less laps than George did. George had 91, he had 81, and there was maybe 100th or a 10th of a second difference between their times. And then so looking at the times, so it was George Russell, Max Verstappen, Alex Albon, Oscar Piastri, Pierre Gasly, Lewis Hamilton, Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, Charles Leclerc, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Lando Norris, Jack Doohan, Lance Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg, Isaac Hadjar, Fernando Alonso, Gabriel Bortoleto and Oliver Behrman. Also, it's important to note that Lance Stroll only did 34 laps. He had the least amount of laps out of everybody because he didn't feel well, and he let Fernando Alonso jump in. So Fernando basically had the whole day in the car. So Lance had 34 laps, Fernando had 82, and this time, as I mentioned previously, 2 drivers did not take part, and that was Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson, because instead it was Max Verstappen and Alex Albon having a full day out there. and it looks like Alex Albon had the most laps with 137, followed by Esteban Ocon, who had 103. Lance Stroll had the least, followed by Gabriel Bortoleto, who only did 35 laps. Sauber, just throughout the whole testing, did not look very promising. It would not surprise me if they had 10th place again in the constructors, but yeah, there was nothing that could really excuse why they didn't do so well. They were near the bottom the entire time. If they weren't at the bottom, they were second from the bottom. It was really disappointing, but I feel like they're probably focusing more on the Audi project than this year, so they might not care as much about this year, just because, you know, they're about to become a completely different company. They're about to get different funding by a major vehicle producing company, and we are about to, you know, see a revolution perhaps there next year, and this year is just drive it out, but don't expect too much from Sauber. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, it doesn't look very promising at the moment, but as I said, it's only testing. This goes with a lot of things. It's only testing, so we will see how that goes. Thank you guys for listening as always, and I guess we'll see how things are out in a couple of weeks when the real thing starts. Don't forget to check out all of my wonderful colleagues on the Be The Change Media Network, and I will see you next weekend. Have a lovely day. Bye.